What's up, everybody? The Arid Lord is back. Welcome back to another Walking Dead vlog. This is for Season 11, Episode 5, review vlog, entitled Out of the Ashes. And we have actually a number of things going on. This is a pretty rambunctious episode, I must say, but also a very good one. Back-to-back weeks now between episodes 4 and 5. I was really worried with that 3-episode stretch that we had at the beginning of the season. I really just didn't feel like anything was happening, as far as, you know, the main survivors. It just felt like it was really spinning its wheels. But these past 2 episodes have really upped the stakes, and I'm really liking it, and it's come with some interesting decisions, and some interesting throwbacks. And we're going to get a bunch of those this episode, but let's get into it. So this episode, I say it features Aaron mostly, and then we also have a bunch of stuff in the Commonwealth, so we do go back, and then we have some side-ish stuff with Maggie and Negan, and so those are kind of the 3 areas that we have, and then we also have a couple of character developing moments with Judith, which I always like. She's very much, you know, our Carl, the youngin' of the group. And I think it's a disservice when they don't give her screen time. Also because Kaylee Fleming is, I've said this before, a fantastic actress. I actually got to tell her that in person when I met her at Walker Stalker Con Atlanta 2019, which I'm pretty sure was the last Walker Stalker Con they ever held. Obviously due to the pandemic, but then also there was some internal stuff that destroyed that whole thing, which, again, I'm not going to bring up in this vlog. You can Google that if you'd like to get the full story. But, yes, I have met her. Very sweet young lady. She will go far in her career, and then I can brag that I met her when she was, like, 11, 12? But, yeah, so there's a bunch of Judith scenes in this. But I do want to go back and start with Aaron. I was thrown off when he's having the dream in the beginning of this episode, and it's not established that it's a dream, but you kind of get the gist that it is when you see the different adversaries, and it was very Tyrese-like. If you guys remember in Season 5, the mid-season premiere when they go to Shire Wilt, where Noah lives, and then Tyrese gets bit, and he's seeing hallucinations of past characters. The governor, Beth, some of the guys from Terminus. The same thing kind of happens here in Aaron's dream. He's seeing past adversaries, but his past adversaries. So that includes the Whisperers, but it also includes it wasn't a known savior, it was a random savior with a gun. And then a wolf. And then, yes, the wolves with the W's on their fucking foreheads. I was watching this episode, and I saw that, and I was like, wait a minute, what? Like, I thought, like, the plot, because, again, keep in mind, the dream starts with him and Gracie in the woods, and there's a walker, and she's scared, and he's gonna go kill the walker, and I'm like, okay, I didn't really, like, it didn't make you think it was a dream up front, because that's a standard scenario in the Walking Dead universe, but as it got, like, red, like, hazy red and dark, and then you see the wolf, and you're like, it just catches you off guard. It was a very interesting scene selection technique by, I think it was Greg Nicotero, they said in the behind the scenes, who directed this episode. And he always directs the best episodes, so I'm not surprised that this was a good episode. And also the filmography was good too. But yeah, that just threw me off. For like any long-time Walking Dead fans that have followed the entire show, like the wolves, like, I was covering the Wolves in, 2015, well, it was just 2015. They were only around for like a few episodes, but yeah, I covered them back when I was a fucking sophomore, junior in college. I mean, that was fucking 6 years ago. So to see someone, and and obviously when the wolves died, the alpha wolf, Owen, his name was revealed, when they beat all the walkers in Alexandria. I mean, like, since season 6, there's been no mention or anything of these guys. It came up like a few times, like Morgan and Rick dialogue back then, but to see it was just jarring, and I'm just like, what the heck? So I hope you guys had the same reaction, because it was really cool. So basically, it's a continuation of what we've known. I was worried because, they started talking about some of the same stuff, like, oh no, we're running out of food. There are some real implications of their there are some real consequences, implications of their scenario. Whereas in Walker's actually breached the perimeter. It's funny because Jerry's taking a piss and then he just starts like pissing on the window as he sees the Walker coming in. So these walls are old. The Whispers destroyed a bunch of them. They're having trouble reinforcing them, and so a group goes. Jerry, Aaron, Lydia, and Carol They go back to Hilltop to see if they can find blacksmithing tools to like hold the wall together. And we haven't really seen much with Lydia's character. Like Kirkman did nothing with her after the Whisper arc. Like her only purpose was to perpetuate the Whisper arc and be Carl's girlfriend. That was really, in the comic at least, the only purpose she had. Now, of course, she's had a much more extended role, interactions that she's had with Daryl, Carol, obviously Henry before he was killed off. In this episode, they give her a little more. I do think they need to figure out what they want to do with her character. Because again, like ever since the Whispers were done, I'm just kind of a little confused, like what's her end goal here? Because spoiler alert, they go to Hilltop, and this is actually from the comics, so this is consistent with the comics. There are Whispers that are hiding in the basement cellar, ironically where Lydia was being held prisoner. They're hiding in the basement, and Aaron ends up, long story short, Aaron ends up torturing one of them because, they burned down Hilltop, and he senses that they're lying, which, in all actuality, I don't think they were. I think that the guy's one reaction was just to Aaron's threats and his torture, because I think there's about 6 Whispers that are hiding in this basement, and Lydia has sort of a reaction, but it's not much of a reaction. That is one critique I have of this episode. Like, I would have liked for her to have been a little more involved in the dialogue and the discussion when Aaron was torturing. Like, she's there. The guy asked for her help. Like, he mentions, like, oh, I passed you food when Alpha wasn't looking. Like, there's some references to, like, that past dynamic that they had. And but I wish it was dialogue that could have maybe advanced her character a little bit more. But perhaps the issue with that is that scene was set to further Aaron's character. It really wasn't there for Lydia's character. They did dip into it a little bit, but it was mainly Aaron's rage and Aaron's revenge, obviously hearkening back to the dream we just talked about where he wants to defend his daughter at all costs, and he's feeling squeezed in from all sides, and he doesn't want to take a chance, and so he's torturing this Whisperer. And then it's Carol who stops him, knowing what vengeance did to her, and what happened to Connie, and some of the other stuff that happened there. So she tries to reel Aaron back in, make him realize the mistake that he's kind of making. And so I think it's justified for his character. I don't think it's anything out of the ordinary. I mean, they established that quite nicely with the dream and then kind of followed through on it. And then the fucking, I guess, as if to prove that they should have been merciful, the guy mentions Connie to actually reference it to Carol's mistake. The guy mentions that 2 women escaped from the tunnels. We already know Magna escaped during she returned during the battle at the Hilltop, and then we never knew what happened to Connie. Obviously Virgil finds her in the season 10 finale, and we haven't had an update since. However, the preview to next week's episode did show, it seems like it's going to be a Connie focused episode. I did see some stuff with Daryl in there, but we're finally going to get a follow-up on what happened with Connie's character. It has been, 6 episodes. They always reserve that 6th or 7th episode to like talk about the character that was completely separated from the group and everything that's going on. So better late than never. It's kind of like how Tara and Heath went off on that supply run, and then they dealt with the Saviors for the first 5 episodes, and then finally they caught up with Tara. and the stuff at Oceanside. So it's kind of similar in that regard. So that's going to be our next plot point. So that was like, there was a lot of like plot continuation devices. Like, so we had the update on Connie. Not much with the Negan and Maggie stuff really at all. To be quite honest, other than, Negan's funny dialogue that he spouts every now and then, because I love Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I'm not too sure their scenes were even really needed in this episode. Like, I could have gone with the Commonwealth stuff, the whole Hilltop expedition, and the scenes with Judith. Like, I would have been okay with just that. But then, it was more of the same. It was more, and the only reason I'm tired of it is because there just doesn't seem to be any viable solution. Like, either Negan is going to do something so unbelievable that it's going to impress Maggie, and then she's finally going to forgive him for what happened to Glenn, or the dude is just going to, meet some sort of end, or they're going to split off, and she's going to just... But it's just, again, it's frustrating to me that there's just this lack of resolution. Like, these characters are just going to continue shooting... Well, Maggie's mainly going to shoot daggers, and... They're just kind of, meandering through the woods. They get into the cabin. They find some food. They debate whether to bring it back. The only resolution there is that by the end of the episode, Father Gabriel and one of the other survivors find the safe house and meet up with them, which is at least telling us that there's some resolution to the Reaper attack that happened on the road, so that more people, like the group at large, is kind of regrouping after that event. But there was one tense scene where they're kind of pushing and shoving each other like middle school children on a playground, and again, I was just kind of rolling my eyes with it. I was like, it's tense stuff. These are two characters that went through probably the most traumatic and memorable moment of the entire series when Negan picked his victim in the clearing. But at the same time, it's just, there's nothing, they flip-flop. They just keep going back and forth. They're shooting daggers at each other. Maggie threatens to kill Negan, and then Negan leaves Maggie for dead. But then, there's Negan's like, yeah, but you would have killed me anyway. And then she's like, okay, here's a gun. I kind of trust you. I'm trying to figure out, what direction they're going. Pick a direction and stick to it. They keep spinning their wheels with this plot, and there's just no continuation of it. At least the Aaron stuff, you had an arc there with him wanting to defend Gracie. His actions that he did perpetuated that. There's a lot of pent up rage from stuff they've lost. And now it's okay, they're going to go after Connie, which is a further way of protecting the community and protecting their greater group. And so that had an arc to it, and there's a continuation of that character. But we've had 3-4 episodes this season of this just, Maggie hates Negan, and we even had this in the bonus episodes. Again, literally since the beginning of this year when the bonus episodes have started. Ever since, Maggie's just oh, Negan, why is Negan out? And, it was all in that conversation when Maggie saw Hilltop was burned, and then Carol's actually, Negan killed Alpha and helped us, and we wouldn't have survived without him. And she doesn't respond, and it's okay, what's your opinion? And then she's just still mulling it over after all this time. So I don't want to make the whole review about that, but that was probably one of my more least favorite. And it's sad because Negan is still my favorite character, but they're just not doing much with him. It's okay, yeah, I know that he doesn't have too much substance, as well, obviously because Kirkman didn't write any more for him. Once the Whisperer arc is done and there's the Maggie Negan wrap up in the comic with him, he just walks off into the sunset, but they've kept him around. So I'm interested in that, but you got to give the guy interesting shit to do. You can't just have him there for the fucking sake of having him there. So anyway, then we get to the Judith stuff, where it's interesting to see different dynamics that you wouldn't expect, kind of in a zombie apocalypse, like bullies. So, and I don't know why they're doing this, but these two asshole kids are goofing around, putting their hand out near the walkers near the wall to see, it's oh, is it gonna bite me? It's Yeah, you idiot. If the fucking walker bites your hand, you literally have to have your hand amputated. Like, do you really want to be a fucking cripple? Like, obviously, stupid kids doesn't cross their mind. But the kid makes an insulting remark about Judith's family being gone. And then she goes back. After a tense exchange, she goes back and she sees that the wood paneling that Carl made with, like, the handprint with her and her sister, that has been defiled as well. So she's going through a rough time. And, Kaylee Fleming does a great job of bringing the emotion out of Judith. Like, it's great scenes. Like, whatever they ask of her, like, she elevates. And I feel like they give her some substance, but she always elevates it. And that's what I really like about watching her character. Like, I know it's the type of scene where, like, you like the character and you like the actress, like the real person playing them. And so you know that the combination, you're going to get a very rich scene from that performance. And so I enjoy it. I very much enjoy it. And she just has this breakdown. And it's understandable. I mean, her mom ran off to presumably, find Rick if they ever freaking resolve that plot line, and she's just kind of upset. Like, she's alone. Like, Daryl's not around. He's off on the road dealing with this freaking Reaper stuff, and even Maggie's not there. Like, a lot of the main cast people are off trying to help the community, and so she doesn't have, like, she's almost in charge of the kids. Like, they're asking for her to almost be an adult while the adults really aren't around. And there are some adults that are around. For example, Rosita actually steps in and has a heart-to-heart moment with Judith, and actually tries to help her repair the wood piling, the wood pylon. And it's a very sweet moment. Like, that's a nice connection of those characters. She also reveals something about her parents, about, a rough dynamic, which, again, like, you wouldn't know that. Some of these side characters that have gotten more and more time have more of these significant scenes, like Yumiko, obviously. We'll get to that in the Commonwealth. But then Rosita's another example where she opens up a little bit to connect with Judith. Now, scenes like this, while I appreciate them, they also make me a little angry. And it's nothing to do with what's going on in the scene itself, but just the fact that, like, they tease stuff that as the audience we know. Like, we know that Rick is alive and being held by the CRM. And I, like, as a viewer, I just want to scream to the TV and tell Judith, who's, you see this sweet, innocent girl bawling her eyes out, and you know that her dad is alive somewhere, and you want to tell her, but, like, you ask yourself, and this is a problem, like, you ask yourself, will they even resolve this plot point in the 24 episodes that we have left, or, like, the final season? Will this plot point get resolved, or are they just waiting for the Rick Grimes movies? Which, I gotta tell you, maybe I'll make another vlog about that. But they've just been, it's going on 3 years now since they were announced, since Rick flew off in that freaking helicopter, and we just don't, like, and, Andrew Lincoln just signed up for something else. Like, it just seems like there's so much distance between the plots. Like, I don't know if there's going to be that overlap. I always thought that the movies and the show would end at the same time so that you could have that grand finale, resolution, Commonwealth versus CRM, whatever, something like that. It doesn't have to be, a war between, obviously people didn't like the Savior War. They kind of got bogged down by it. So, you don't have to have a giant fucking, World War II Commonwealth versus CRM. But, like, there's got to be some overlap because they're two ginormous communities, number one. And number two, they're the final arcs of both the movie and the show. And the CRM is basically the main entity of all of the shows. They're in Fear the Walking Dead. They're the main entity in World Beyond. They're obviously been, in and around in the main show. They took Rick, all the stuff with Jadis, who also got mentioned in the World Beyond trailer. So I'm going off topic here, but what I'm saying is, like, as an audience member, for any other show, you would be confident in saying to yourself, oh, like, we know something the character doesn't, and I can't wait for that to be revealed. But we don't know when the fuck that's gonna be revealed is the problem. We don't even know if it'll get revealed in this show, and that's bothersome to me, because I want at some point Judith's character to know that her dad is alive. She should know that. And we do kind of have that scene with Miss Michonne where Miss Michonne says, like, oh, I found something belonging to, you know, like, she doesn't reference him, but Judith kind of knows, maybe. Like, there's hope. There's hope that her dad is alive. But she doesn't know for sure. Like, wouldn't you want a reunion? Like, isn't that a moment we would love to strive for to stick through this show? A reunion between Judith and Rick? Like, that's just something to strive for. Like, that's like series finale type of shit. You know, the final scenes of the show, the final scenes of the movie. Like, that's something we want to see. And I just, like, because of the delay with the movies, I'm just kind of worried, like, if that'll ever happen. So, anyway, not to make this too big of a rant, that was the scenes with Judith, and I did very much enjoy them. I guess the only other piece was the Commonwealth, which, again, continues to feel like its own show. But again, that's a good thing. I'm just saying that, like, there's a very different feel between the grudgy, you know, going hungry, you know, ness, and then you've got, like, this, it almost feels like Fallout, you know? It almost feels like Fallout, where you have, like, this utopian civilization that's in the middle of a dystopia. Like, it's interesting. Like, it's interesting, the juxtaposition. They really go all out with the banners and, you know, Rocky Road ice cream, and they're showing, you know, like, entertainment, like rock concerts, people with guitars and shit. Like, it's a 50,000 plus community that's very strong. And it's the biggest civilization that any of the characters ever face in the entire show. And so there's a couple dynamics that they go through. Again, there's a lot of meat in this episode. There's Yumiko finally meeting her brother, who's a baker. They do some jawing back and forth because he used to be a surgeon. And it looks like, it's interesting how the apocalypse was good for him because it allowed him to leave a profession. Like, you know, if you spend your whole life in grad school being a surgeon, like, you know, you've really dedicated your life in that career. Like, you're stuck in that career. But because of the apocalypse, that all kind of got erased, and then he was able to take this new profession on. Now, I'm curious why the Commonwealth auditors allowed him to do that. Because it seemed like in all of the interviews, they wanted people to stay with the professions they had from before. Like, in this episode, we get that discussion. Like, they want Eugene to be a teacher. They want Ezekiel to be a fucking zookeeper. Like, they make them, and Ezekiel even says, like, yeah, we have jobs that are like the ones we had before the apocalypse. So, I just found that intriguing, how her brother was able to use like, his careers changed to his benefit because of the apocalypse. Like, that's just very intriguing to me. And then we have Stephanie and Eugene. Eugene wants to get a message to Alexandria, which we finally get. Eugene actually very briefly speaks to Judith and Rosita, so they have that, they almost like cross over what's going on with them and their bonding, and then they're like, oh, you know, here's Eugene with the radio. So they basically, Rosita and Judith can now convey that Eugene and the others are safe. And they did reveal that the Whisperers are dead. But I'm wondering... And then they also talk about the dire state of Alexandria. So, like, I wanted more of a conversation. I know they're teasing us because this is going to come later. And also, they were breaking the law. It was a whole plot, like, Princess distracting Mercer, which was very funny, by the way. I very much thought that scene, like, I think in the comics they hook up, Mercer and Princess. So I don't know if they're laying the groundwork for that, but that was a pretty funny scene where she was, like, making comments towards him. And he just has this, like, stony expression, and whenever he's, like, listening to her talk. So, And then they get caught, and this guy's like, you're going to stand before a judge, and you might get processed and thrown out. And then, as all these threats are being made, freaking Lance Hornsby makes his introduction. He was in the intro video. As Princess says, it's Video Dude. I would have liked a longer introduction with him. He kind of just comes in the room, and then he almost like pulls strings, because he walks in with Stephanie, and you can tell that Stephanie pulled some strings to not make the situation as bad, and he kind of just gives a decree and then walks out of the room. I would have liked for him to have sat down behind the desk, and we could have had an introduction to his character. Like, I feel like that would have been effective, but he just kind of walks in, makes some remarks, and then he walks out. And I'm like, well, no, like, damn it. Like, I wanted more of his character. Like, if you're introducing the character for the first time. Like, it's not, like, I know we had that video, which was the promo video for the Commonwealth, and maybe that was his character introduction, I suppose you could argue. But I was left wanting more, which I guess is good. But, like, I wanted more from that scene, I guess I'm trying to say. So it looks like their punishment's not going to be as bad, but we don't know, like, what they're going to have to do or what the ramifications are. So, a lot of unanswered questions. A lot. Like, we still have this fucking food plot with Maggie trying to get the stash of food whenever that gets resolved. The survivors now know that Connie is out there, and they're going to go after her, and it looks like she's the focus of the next episode. We have some contact between Eugene and our group. We have, like, one crossover event, finally. I'm wondering, again, when formal introductions are going to be made. I don't know when the hell that will happen, but I'm wondering when that will happen. And what else? Well, I mean, we still have other stuff that's left unresolved that wasn't in this episode. Like, Daryl wasn't in this episode, but he's still with the Reapers. We still got the situation with him and Leah. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on. I like that. It's not just them, trudging through an underground sewer and, fighting repetitive walkers and having the same arguments over and over again, which is what I felt the first 3 episodes were. And finally, these past 2 have kind of breaking out of the norm, and I'm getting that usual Walking Dead feeling. So basically what I'm saying to the show is keep up the good work. I will give this a 9 out of 10 because I did very much enjoy it. Like, there was a lot of different plot things bouncing. We had some good character moments. Again, always love Judith's scenes. I really like the expansion of what the Commonwealth is. It's intriguing me to see, like, more of their civilization. Also, we haven't met Pamela Milton. She's mentioned a couple of times. And then, of course, there's her son in the comics, who has not been introduced either, Sebastian. Or they might remix it with Lance Hornsby's daughter that's in the promo video. I don't know. We have to keep watching to find out. So yeah, all of that stuff was really cool, and that's why I'm giving this a high review. So let's keep up the good work. Let's keep it rolling. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's the usual 8. If this is going to end in 3 weeks in terms of the the mid-season break, and then it's gonna. I don't know, because again, we got this season early. Like, we shouldn't have the episodes by now. It should be October when we usually get the episodes, and then it goes into December. So I don't know when the show will return after the 8 episodes. Like, I'm not sure what their filming schedule is with this being an extended season. So I guess we'll have to see. But yeah, let's just kind of keep this train rolling, and that's about it for me, guys. Thank you for watching, and yeah, I shall see you all for another episode down the road. Peace out.